How does one person take the life of 4 individuals? I'm sure that's a question that a lot of people have in their head when you were told about this case. Exactly how does one person take the life of 4 individuals? Simple. Ambush. They didn't see it coming. That's what's going to be shown to you throughout this trial. That on June 5th of 2024, one person, Luke Truesdell, the defendant, brutally beat, bashed, and destroyed the lives of Romondus Cooper, Amanda Parker, Brent Brown, and Keonna Ryan. And how? With about a 3-foot metal pipe. There's going to be no doubt when this evidence is presented that there's one person, and only one person, that committed these horrible offenses back on June 5th of 2024. So let's go back, let's take it back to June 5th of 2024. On this date, at 3699 East Otter Road in Marion, Lake County, Iowa, Brent Brown, Keonna Ryan, Romondus Cooper, and Amanda Parker were living at this property. You see, this property consists of a house, and off to the right to the house was some would call it a pole barn, a workshop, a large garage. In the house lived Brent Brown's father, Lon Brown, as well as another individual named Cody McLeod Jr. In this big workshop, garage, pole barn lived in a tent Romondus Cooper and Amanda. And the 4 of them had lived at the property together for quite some years with Lon, with Cody. And that's on this day in question, Luke Truesdell came out to the property with his father, Larry Truesdell. They arrived earlier that day, and you'll see surveillance footage provided from the property. That the surveillance footage shows right in front of the house and off to the side a little bit of this workshop. And you'll see the times that Larry and Luke arrived together, and that Larry will be seen going in front of this shed where there's this boat, working on this boat throughout the day. And then you'll see later on that day, Amanda arriving with Romondus on his green motorcycle, coming back from work, where Brent and Keonna were doing yard work in between the garage and the house. And that you'll see there's some interaction that's going on among the 4, also going on among Luke and Larry. Everything seems to be going fine. But it wasn't. Something happened. And what you'll see in this footage is that Romondus goes into the garage where his truck is parked. It appears later on through footages and surveillance footage, body cam, that he appeared to probably be working on his truck because the hood is up. And that you'll see Amanda go in and come out with a glass of water to talk to Keonna, talk to Brent. Little did she realize that that would be the last few minutes of her life. Because what you also see before she goes in, the last time you ever see her alive, is you see the defendant, Luke, go in right after Romondus. And after Amanda goes in, some time goes on, and the surveillance footage you see, and you'll hear this loud wind. Don't get me wrong, it was very, very windy that day. Not many officers, people that were there tell you about how strong the wind was. But luckily, brief seconds, it stops, and you hear a loud scream. The last scream of life from Amanda Parker. And what this scream does, it stops Keonna and Brent from doing what they were doing. It stops them and kind of give each other a look of, did you hear something? And you'll see these two make their way up to the shop. As they're approaching the shop, one person comes out of that shop. Luke Truesdell. And as they all kind of make contact as they walk by each other, when the two of them enter into the shop, Luke Truesdell does an about face, goes in immediately after them. That's the last time that you see those two alive. And you're here throughout the case. The chaos shortly arrives after the fact. That information is passed to Larry, information is passed to Lon, and you can see the interaction of Luke and Larry through the surveillance footage. Of Larry throwing his arms up. You can hear things. Of confusion of what is going on. And eventually, Lon Brown's son, Matt Brown, receives a call from his dad that 4 people are hurt, 4 people are dead or something. You need to call 911 or call an ambulance. Matt is at work this day. He doesn't live at the property. He's familiar with who lives there. He's familiar with the 4 individuals. But he gets this call. And Matt's going to come and he's going to talk to you about getting this call while he's at work. I'm not sure what it's about. So he gets this call and he leaves. He arrives. His brother shortly arrives after him. And he sees that both garage doors are down. Double-stall garage doors. And in between the 2 double-stall garage doors, there's a regular door, entrance, that's slightly open. As he walks to the garage to see what's going on, he starts to smell like burnt oil, some fumes, and he thinks to himself, surely they're not dumb enough to work on something with the door shut, thinking that this could be a carbon monoxide issue or some type of issue. Little did he realize the chaos that he was about to walk into, the brutality, the horror of this scene. As he walks through the door, hits the garage door on the right to open up, to air out. His brother hits the left side door. He sees standing off to the left of him, to the right of him, blood. 2 individuals. And on the right, in front of a truck, he sees a pile of blood with Romondus Cooper and his brother, Brent Brown. To the left of them, by what appears to be a seat taken out of the back of a vehicle, sees another pile of blood. Keonna Ryan. And he is shocked at what's going on. He has no idea how this happened. And he's told in the back corner, wedged between a table and other equipment, is Amanda Parker, bashed and beaten. And that's also, without a shirt on, trying to provide some assistance to his brother, is Larry Truesdell. Luke Truesdell is nowhere to be found. It's later discovered that he's sitting in the house with Lon, doing nothing. He's panicking. It's chaotic. He's got his phone out. He dials 911. You'll hear that call. You hear the fear, the loss, the confusion in his voice. And that shortly officers arrive on scene. And he's still not sure what to describe or tell officers what this is. and that Deputy Jason Lopsker arrives first on scene. And his body camera was working that day. And you'll see that body cam footage as Deputy Lopsker approaches this garage and is met by Matt Brown, who's clearly distraught, upset, confused about what is going on. Deputy Lockhart is also walking to a situation where he has no idea what it actually is. He's told it's some type of carbon monoxide poisoning, a possibility. But what he walks into is something far from that. He walks into a murder scene where they find 4 individuals. 3 are already dead. 1, Brent Brown, hanging on for his life. Other officers arrived on scene. Trooper Tyler Fairbanks, second officer on scene, quickly starts to take some photographs. Eventually, other officers arrive on scene. Sergeant Eric Lear, Sergeant Tim Payne, at the time was Sergeant Todd Egley, but now Lieutenant Todd Egley, as well as numerous other officers and paramedics, to try to figure out what is going on. Questioning themselves, how does 4 individuals get taken down where no one has any signs of defense wounds? And they get that answer that day. They get that answer from one person, Luke Truesdell. When they approach him, he's sitting outside on the deck of Lon Brown's house. They talk to him. They talk to everybody trying to figure out what exactly happened. What's going on? And just casually, out of nowhere, Luke says, "I hit him." And they locate what he hit them with. 3-foot black pipe covered in blood and hair belonging to Keonna Ryan. And they take him down to the station. Lieutenant Egley rides with him in the back seat. He makes several other statements and admissions about things that were said, things that happened. And you'll see this scene. You'll see what's called a Faro scan. Basically, I'll fly through video of how big this area is. You'll see the individual photographs of the beaten, lifeless bodies of these 4 individuals. You'll hear testimony from DCI criminalists, Tara Scott, Steve Taberdick, and how they processed this pipe. That they weren't able to locate fingerprints, and they'll explain why fingerprints is not something you see on TV. It's more luck, almost in science. But what was interesting, that they did find on this pipe, 3 matched DNA. DNA belonging to Romondus Cooper, DNA belonging to Keonna Ryan, and DNA belonging to Luke Truesdell, the person who said, "I hit them." And lastly, you'll hear testimony from Assistant State Medical Examiner, Dr. Roy Newell. He'll tell you about the severity of these 4 individuals' deaths. How this pipe crushed, cracked, and broke and shattered the skulls of 4 individuals who didn't even have a chance and didn't even see it coming. You're going to see some very gruesome photographs. Because unfortunately, these injuries were so severe that they bashed the skulls and bloodied and bruised their brains. And all 4 of these individuals had parts of that pipe embedded into them. This is a brutal murder. Not just once, not just twice or 3 times, but 4 brutal, bashing, smashing murder. Once all the evidence is presented, at the end of this case, my co-counsel, colleague, Ms. Slaughter is going to come up here and explain to you how every single one of those elements of the charges that's been presented in this case has been proven to you. And on behalf of us, she will ask you to return verdicts of guilty on all 4 counts of murder in the first degree. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scheer. Would the defense like to make an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Houghton, whenever you're ready.
May it please the court, counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no question. Keonna Ryan, Romondus Cooper, Amanda Parker, and Brent Brown. They were in fact attacked. It's a brutal attack. However, the evidence is not going to show you that there was any ambush. The evidence is not going to show you that Luke Truesdell attacked any of these people, causing their death. On June 5th, 2024, Luke drove his father out to see his old-time friend, Lon Brown. Took his father, Larry Truesdell, out to see his old friend, Lon Brown. Now, Lon Brown, as you heard, lived with his son, Brent, Brent's girlfriend, Keonna. And on Lon Brown's property, off to the side, as Mr. Scheer said, there is a pole barn, or for those like who are from city limits, a large barn or a large garage. And in that garage lived Romondus Cooper and Amanda Parker in a tent inside the garage. Now, unfortunately, it is inside this garage where these 4 people end up being attacked that day. You will see that Lon Brown had cameras on his property, multiple cameras. You're going to see different things from those cameras, including you may see Luke and Larry actually arriving on the property that day. You may see Romondus, or Roe as they call him, and Amanda arriving that day on Roe's bike, on his motorcycle. And as Mr. Scheer said, you may see Brent and Keonna doing yard work. However, what you will not see is any ambush. What you will not see is Luke Truesdell arguing or even fighting with anyone that day. You will not see Luke Truesdell even expressing an ounce of frustration towards any of these people that day. And despite the cameras, you will not see who committed this attack. Now, you will hear testimony from law enforcement officers giving their theory or best version of what they believe happened that day. But you need to keep in mind, it is just that, it's a theory. One very difficult thing, and I believe that Ms. Slaughter addressed it in jury selection and Mr. Scheer just addressed it, you're going to see some very brutal images coming out of this. And this is one of the more difficult parts of these types of trials, is seeing the aftermath and what everything looked like after the fact. You're going to see pictures. You may see body cam footage. You may see the inside of the garage, seeing the significant injuries that these 4 people sustained. You're also going to see a lot of blood. There will be blood throughout. One thing, however, that evidence is not going to show is despite that significant amount of blood, the evidence is not going to show you that blood being on all over Luke Truesdell. Now, Mr. Scheer brought up a statement made by Mr. Truesdell to law enforcement. Statement saying, "I hit them." He also mentioned that Luke Truesdell goes on to make other statements in the backseat of the patrol vehicle. It's going to be up to you to listen to those statements and make a determination as to whether or not those statements even make any sense or if they're at all credible. That's going to be part of what you're going to be doing. You will not be able to rely solely on the surveillance cameras that are on the property. The surveillance cameras are not going to give you all the answers. Your attention when watching that surveillance video should not only be paid to what it is that you're seeing, but also what it is you're not seeing. Mr. Scheer mentioned 2 large garage doors, 1 center walk-through door. The evidence is not going to show you those doors. You will not see that from those surveillance cameras. Those surveillance cameras are not going to show you who entered that garage. Those surveillance cameras are not going to show you who exited that garage. After you receive the evidence, and you all retire to the jury room to discuss this case, you might have more questions than you do answers. And if that is the case, I ask you to not make assumptions about what the evidence is not showing you. I ask you to hold the state to their burden and provide those answers for you. And if at the end of this trial, you don't feel that those answers have been provided, you're not firmly convinced, then we do ask that you find a verdict of not guilty on all 4 counts.